Hello, MHCP cohort. I hope you all are having a lovely day, evening, wherever you are in the world. We have a very special event for you all this evening with two of my favorite people and absolute geniuses in the marketing world. And I swear I'm not being biased, but no introduction that I could ever give them would do their experience justice. So without further ado, the lovely Candace and Shannon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, William, for that lovely intro. And yeah, I'll jump in. I'm Candace Locklear, and we are together with Shannon going to talk a little bit about some marketing essentials, some just fundamental sort of ideas for how to market yourselves. And though we are from a PR agency, we're not talking about PR. PR is a subset of marketing. We're going to stick with marketing. So just a little about me. I've been doing tech PR specifically in the Bay Area for almost 30 years, working mostly with startups, a lot of developers and creators like yourselves, and also large companies like Meta, Facebook, Google, Twitter, when Facebook was still Facebook, all kinds of companies. So we're really happy to be here to help sort of illuminate what it means to market yourselves, how to identify an audience, and how to put your message together. So look forward to the discussion. And I'll hand it off to Shannon.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Shannon. I've been doing PR and marketing with Candace for over 10 years. And I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of like why Candace and I are here, what makes our experience applicable to what you are doing as MHCP creators. So first off, Candace and I have worked a lot with creators specifically on different platforms. So we've worked with creators on Patreon, we've worked with creators on Indiegogo, on SoundCloud. So we've done a lot with helping kind of creators shape their stories, talk about themselves, and market themselves. So that's one reason why we're kind of applicable here. The second is that in the last couple of years, we've done a lot of work in the metaverse, VR, XR. Candace and I worked with SoundCloud. So we worked with some of the creators that have been creating for 20 years in, or not SoundCloud, I mean Second Life, in the Second Life metaverse. So that gave us some really great insight into kind of what a really long history as a metaverse creator looks like. We also work with tons of VR game developers. So we've launched games like Breachers, Gorilla Tag, Hello Neighbor, and like 25 others. We also do work with FitXR. They make a fitness app for the Quest. So we are kind of in both of your worlds. So with creators and with VR and XR metaverse as well. So we feel like we kind of uniquely understand your position. And lastly, we came on and started doing some work individually with MHCP creators, looking at their messaging, how they're positioning their brand and product, how effective they are at communicating and helping them come up with some new ideas. And so William and team asked us if we could provide these insights that we were developing one-on-one with this entire cohort. So we're really excited to talk a little bit more, and that's why we're here.
So quickly running over the agenda, obviously this is the introduction if you couldn't tell. Next up will be defining your marketing goals with Shannon, crafting your message with Candace, and then at the end we'll be doing a Q&A. So a little housekeeping on that. We are taking questions at the end of the presentation. We're not going to be doing them live. So I promise we're not ignoring you. We see your questions in chat, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. Please, 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 please feel free to ask your questions and chat amongst yourselves throughout the presentation. As another quick little heads up, we won't be talking about any monetization questions at this time or anything about the update that went live yesterday. And I think that just about covers it. So I am going to shut up now and let the lovely Shannon kick things off.
So just quickly before we dive in, our goals of this presentation and kind of overall in these two sessions that we'll be doing is to provide you, the MHCP creators, with the skills to promote your worlds and yourselves as VR XR creators, to grow your followings and to drive new and returning users to your worlds. So today we're going to talk about marketing basics, we're going to talk about audience types, and how to craft your brand messaging and value proposition. And I'll say, so this is a two parts kind of series. So in today's session, we're really going to start with building the foundation and giving you the foundational tools, because we want you to have a really kind of well-rounded and holistic view of marketing and what it is and how to do it. So I would imagine you might be kind of eager to hear, like, what can I do on social to increase my engagement? But we're not going to get there just yet. That's going to be session 2. Today, we want you to leave having kind of a really clear understanding of why you should spend your time marketing and how it ultimately can affect your business as a creator. So like I said, really kind of building the foundation for your marketing education today. Okay, so first things first, starting all the way at the top, what is marketing? So I am 100% certain that you have experienced marketing probably 50 times today. So marketing is all of the emails from brands and companies that you wake up to first thing in the morning. It's the ads you watch on TV. It's the content that you engage with on, lots of social media channels. It's the billboards you see when you're driving down the street. It's the articles that you read in the newspaper or in a magazine. We are being marketed to all the time. And marketing is a very broad term. But what's interesting is, whether you're a huge company or you're an individual creator, a lot of the principles are the same. Okay, so also as a little bit of foundation, I wanted to give a quick overview of the channels that we're going to be talking about as we get into the next slides where we're talking about audiences and messaging. We'll reference channels, so I just wanted to make sure that you know what we're talking about. And your channels are where you're going to do your execution. So we kind of narrowed down into 3 channels that we found to be the most effective for Horizon World creators. The first is social media. I'm sure you all have personal channels where you're connecting with your friends, but I'm curious if you are using a secondary channel or even your own personal channel to talk about your work in Horizon Worlds, what you're building, your brand, your worlds. And so we kind of define social as Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn. Those kind of are the most relevant, we think, for this group of creators. The second channel is in Horizon Worlds, right? So your strongest audience who wants to engage with you, they're in there. So that's the easiest place for you to get in front of people who want to hear about you and interact with them. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can get in front of the Horizon Worlds audience in Horizon Worlds and attract them. And the third group is what we call the Horizon Worlds like broader community. So we're looking at this being mostly Reddit and Discord. So these are channels where people who are interested in Horizon Worlds are gathering outside, right? So they're going there for community, for like-minded people to talk about things that they're already interested in. And so that's a great place for you to go and talk about what you're doing, engage with a community who already is interested in Horizon Worlds. Okay, so now that we've laid the groundwork, let's talk a little bit about setting your marketing goals. So this is important because before you go out and spend your time and energy on, doing any sort of marketing activity, we want you to feel like you have something that you're working towards, right? So we've kind of defined here a little criteria for you to think through to be able to set some great marketing goals for yourself. So the first one is to align. So you want to make sure that your marketing goals are aligned with your kind of overall objectives or maybe your business goals as a creator. So what are you trying to achieve as a creator, and how can marketing help you achieve that? Second is a little acronym for you to make sure that your goals are SMART. So are they specific, which means, instead of having a goal that's just something like, oh, I want to post more, how much more, make that goal really specific. Second is your goal measurable. So an example of a measurable goal would be, I want to increase my TikTok following by 10%. Is your goal achievable and is it relevant to what you're doing, right? So this one's a little bit self-explanatory, but we wouldn't encourage you to set a goal that's kind of outside of your reach, right? So saying, I want to have 1 million followers on TikTok, that's probably not super achievable, right? So not super relevant either. And lastly, is your goal time bound? So it's always good to kind of set a time frame in which you want to achieve this goal. So maybe it's by the end of the month, by the end of the year. Just give yourself kind of a window, just holding yourself accountable to, how much effort you want to put in and what you want to see happen over the course of a set time period. And lastly, make sure that you're prioritizing your goals. So you might leave this session with like lots of ideas for what you want to achieve through marketing. So prioritizing, will help you kind of look at the goals and list them in the goals that will deliver the most value for you. So if you have, you might have goals where you're like, okay, this one is definitely, this is going to be the most impactful for my business. And there's another goal that I'll list further down that's just kind of fun or something that I might want to do just because I think it's interesting or might be fun for my community, but it's ultimately probably not going to like move the needle for me from, a business perspective or reaching my overall goals. So just make sure that you have kind of a list or hierarchy of how you want to execute against your goals. And here's some examples of kind of overall objectives and marketing goals and how they kind of match up or align. So just to talk through like one example, let's say your objective is to grow your brand awareness amongst an audience of Horizon World users. So if you think about, okay, what could I do? What goals would help me achieve that? One could be, I'm going to refresh my brand messaging by the end of this month so that as I'm going out and talking to Horizon World users, they have a really clear understanding of who I am, what my world is, what I do, what I offer, right? So that would be a great goal to try to grow your brand awareness. And secondarily, you could say, you know what, I know that I've never posted in the Horizon World Discord. I know there's a conversation going on over there. So I'm going to join and I'm going to increase my posting and my activity, just kind of involvement in that community as a way to kind of lure more Horizon World users into my world. So if I'm connecting with them and having great conversations in the Discord channel, then people are kind of more likely to know who I am and come by my world and see what I'm about, what I'm offering. So just a couple of examples so you can see again how you can take your overall objective and kind of create marketing goals that will help you achieve those. Okay, so next we're going to talk a little bit about audiences. So this is important because as you develop your marketing plans and your messaging, you'll want to think about how you engage with different groups of people who have different levels of understanding about Horizon Worlds, about you as a creator, about your world, right? So to give you an example, let's say there's a clothing brand and Candace is a super fan of this brand. She's been following them since day one. She is a frequent, purchaser of their goods. She's commenting on their Instagram. She's getting their emails, right? She's a fan. So, let's say this brand, I've never heard of them. And I was on Instagram and I saw an ad come up and I clicked it. And now I'm on their website for the first time. That brand is going to talk to me in a very different way than they're talking to Candace. There's different messages for us, right? So for me, they know I'm new. So they want to kind of pull me in, entice me, give me some education about what they're about, what they do, what they sell. But Candace already knows that. They don't need to tell her that, right? So to keep, Candace, the super fan, engaged in their brand and their product, they're going to give her exclusive access. They're going to give her behind the scenes content, right? Because she already knows what's going on and she wants more and more. So that's how they're going to keep her engaged. So that's just like a little example of how to think about your audiences, right? Because you're going to want to talk to them in different ways. So for the purpose of you all as MHCP creators, we've identified 3 different audience groups for you to think about. The first group is your advocates. So these are the people who are actively engaging with you today. They're in your world, they follow you on social, you guys are in kind of the same conversations and community. So when you think about talking or marketing to this group, think about building a deeper relationship with them. What can you say to them? What can you offer them that's going to keep them coming back for more? Because they're already there. They've already said like, yes, I'm interested. I want to know more. So you want to make sure that the content and, the messaging that you're sending them is appropriate for them as someone who already knows who you are and just wants more. The second group we call the interested group. So we define this as current Horizon World users that maybe have not engaged with you yet. So because they're in the community, it's going to be easier for you to reach them with your message, right? They don't need to be convinced to come into Horizon World. They're already there, but maybe they just don't know about you. So thinking about how you can target them with messaging that will get them to come, understand who you are, what you're doing, what you offer, and lure them kind of over to check out what you're doing. And then the last audience we call unaware. So this audience is going to be the most difficult to reach because they might not know what Horizon Worlds is. They're probably not users, but there is kind of one area of unaware And that's what we call a niche or targeted audience. And so this is not going to be applicable to everyone, and it's not going to be kind of worth everyone's time to try and lure in unaware audiences. But we wanted to talk about reaching these niche or targeted audiences because they might be interested in what you're doing from kind of like a subject level, or the topic that might be kind of involved in your world and in your product. So as an example, we did a little bit of work with Michael Gregory. He builds escape rooms. So people who go to escape rooms in real life, or maybe play, kind of escape world style games and other online forums, they would definitely be interested in Michael's worlds because they love escape rooms, but they might not be in Horizon World. They might not know what it is. They might not have a headset. So they're a little bit more difficult to reach because they need some education, but they have that baseline interest in your topic or your subject and what you're doing. So wanted to call them out here because it might be relevant to some of you, not everyone, but they're a good group to think about if your kind of subject matter matches up with something outside of Horizon Worlds. Okay, next slide. That was it from me. So I'm going to hand it off to Candace, and she's going to talk a little bit more about crafting your message.
So crafting your message. So now that Shannon has talked about some marketing fundamentals and the audiences that you have and the channels that you have to reach those audiences, what are you going to say? First of all, it's important to have a clear and concise message. This is the art of the matter. It's really sort of coming up with what you want to say and then shrinking it down so that it's something that's repeatable and that you can use across channels, rely on, and that's how you build your brand. So that's sort of in a nutshell what we're talking about here. Nike's famous for it, just do it. That's still the one I think of. This is a more modern message. Your only limit is you. And that's sort of more of a tagline. So we'll talk about the various types of messages, but overall, we want you to think about how to develop these clear messages that you can use in all of your marketing content. It's sort of an umbrella that will trickle down across the various types of marketing that you use. And that will align with what your goals are, like Shannon talked about, and the audiences you're trying to reach. So it all comes together. Having a consistent voice is very important, and you'll be developing what your voice is as a creator. This is a great way to stand out, be unique, be known, build your own profile as a creator. And again, you'll have this consistent voice and message across all of your different types of communications. And that's what helps build brand awareness. It's repetition. And that's what marketing is. That's what advertising is. It's beating you over the head multiple times so that it sinks in. What do you use this for? What is messaging all about? Well, it's really something like Shannon mentioned, is that you use across all your different channels to have a consistent brand, a consistent voice as a creator, and also something that's unique to you. It takes some doing. It's not easy. It might not come naturally to you, but that's why we're going through sort of the approach here and some of the tools and why it's important. So first of all, you use it for content. You have your social media channels, obviously. You'll have your about section on your website or on your bio. Really important to develop like who you are, how you want to be perceived. On any websites you might have, you want to make sure you're using your messaging, and any of the community platforms that we've talked about, Discord, etc. You'll also do it in world. If you have different titles, descriptions, slogans, taglines, any signage in your worlds, it's going to be reflected. You want to make sure it's pulling through. And lastly, for any launches that you're planning, you want to make sure that your messaging goes across all of those channels, how you describe your worlds, your hubs within a plaza, and what those verbal descriptions are when you're engaging with users, that you're using the same words, the same phrases, so that your consistency is really helping you raise your brand awareness. That's what this is really all about. So we have a little framework for you. How do you do it? I'm sure that's the big question on your mind. How do you go about doing this? This is a classic marketing 101 framework. There's no sort of special sauce here. It's something that's been used probably for 30 years. It's succinct. You're trying to answer the who, what, where, when, how, and we have this framework to help you do that. So this is what helps you define your brand and your product. You can also use it for your own sort of profile in a whole lot of different ways, but you just have to tweak it for each use. So first of all, you're thinking about who's your target. That's your first audience, some of the audiences that Shannon talked about. Who are you making this for? You'll answer that. Second, you'll try to identify what that audience needs. What are you offering to them? How are you fulfilling that need? Thirdly, how are you different? How are you unlike what else is out in the marketplace? How are you meeting the needs of this target, or how are others not meeting that need? That's the alternative piece. And then what's unique about what you're doing? How do you stand out? And lastly, how are you going about doing it? What's your ultimate advantage? And if you can answer all of this, you're pretty much coming up with a positioning statement, a value prop too, pretty much the same thing. So here's an example of that. And I'm just going to read it out and using the same sort of framework for introverted players, because they need a space to play when they don't want to socialize, and worlds can be crowded. So we provide a safe space for people of all ages to play a game that requires one player. That's something that Michael Gregory did come up with. So that's a way to sort of position who you are, what value you're offering, and how you're different, how you're unique in a succinct way. So I challenge you all to use this, go through this exercise, and figure out if you can come up with your own value prop. There's also a brand messaging matrix. So a value prop is the first piece of this we just talked about. It's what makes your brand interesting and unique. But you also want to have a brand mission or brand value, which is why you're doing this in the first place. Why does it exist? And what are you trying to achieve over time? What's the mission? Where are you going? How are you going to evolve? The second kind of sort of messaging piece to this is an elevator pitch. I'm sure you all know this term, and that's really sort of, you picture yourself being in an elevator, you've got about 10 seconds with someone, and then somebody turns to you and say, what do you do for a living? You've got that one sentence, that pithy statement that describes what you do and why that person should care. That's an elevator pitch. And then lastly, focusing away from the product or the service that you're creating. Who are you? Who are you as the person behind this big idea? What is your brand? Why are you unique? You want to have this about me statement. And that's something that would show up in your bio or your about me section of your website. So those are the 4 types of sort of messaging that we talk about when we think about the whole exercise. There's 2 kinds of messaging. I sort of touched on this earlier. You've got your brand message, and then you've got your creator message, which should be distinct and different. So you want to tailor your message based on the audiences you're trying to reach. We've sort of talked about that quite a bit already. And brand focused messaging is really the majority of what you're going to do. You're not going to talk about yourself so much, but really what you're doing as a service and how to tailor that. It's going to be tweaked based on the audiences you're trying to reach, as well as for any niche or targeted audiences. You can be more specific, or you can sort of broaden it out to reach a larger audience. But for creator focused messaging, you're really trying to set up who you are as a creator, why you're unique, and not really about the brand so much, but about what you are bringing to the party and what's so innovative about what you're trying to do. That's your creator message. Oh, I think we're almost at the end. So that's a little bit about this session. And then in the next session, we'll get into the meat of the matter on social media marketing, how to take some of what you've learned here and apply it to the various channels there, how to do the same thing in World. And we'll be thinking about what your playbook could look like. Cool. We're at the Q&A. So I'm hoping there are some questions.
There is some questions. So this question is from Yubi. And they asked, what advice would you give to a game builder that understands the value of marketing, but wants to focus on their trade and their work, and then work with like a marketing partner or a
Yep.
service? Like, what advice would you give to someone
Yeah. Well,
who's kind of starting out in marketing,
yeah.
but wants to hire someone?
You need to inform whoever you hire. So you've got to do some thinking here. And this is brass tacks what we're giving you. And hopefully the tools are clear and that you could do this on your own because you know the best sort of how to position yourself. That's not to say you're going to get it right or it's going to be perfect. It's going to iterate. You're going to refine it. The more experience you have, the more success you have, the more users you're reaching. It's always going to change. But you've got to have an idea of who you are, why you're different, what's unique, what the value prop is to inform whoever you hire. And they can take it to the next level. That's what I would say. You can't outsource everything. So brass tacks, you need to have some thinking, and then you can go and sort of look for assistance and inform that person that you're working with, that expert, and they can elevate what you're doing.
I'm going to take another question. This is from Andrew Money 10, and they asked, do you think videos or flyers work best for people to get attention from people or getting them to interact with your post? And what I'll say to that is that video is kind of king right now. We get so much marketing, we get so many things thrown at us that people are a little bit hesitant to read as much anymore with a video. And what I'll say about video, I don't have the exact stat. We'll get into this in the next session, but you have something like 0.5 seconds to capture someone's attention with a video. So if you're thinking about posting video content, think about how you can kind of immediately grab someone's attention. So that could just be even like starting with a really loud noise or coming on really quick, right? You have a really short time frame. Like I said, we spend so much time scrolling, we spend so much time online watching TV, right? Like things are always coming at us. So to stand out, you have to really think about how can I capture someone's attention really quickly? And I think video is the best format to do that. So yeah, that would be my answer to that question. Another question from Jay Dunnerp. I hope I said that okay. They asked, is there a clear benefit for world creators to work with content creators to help push out their world to new audiences or niche audiences? And to that, I would say yes. Again, I would really encourage you to go through these steps that we talked about today, right? Really have a clear, before you engage with anyone who's going to go talk on your behalf, make sure that you are really clear about what you want them to say, that they really understand what your message is, what your goal is by working with them, and what you want to get out of this interaction with them. But I do think, again, going back to the Michael Gregory escape world example, I'm sure that there are people posting on Instagram and posting on TikTok, videos of them kind of in escape worlds or escape rooms, interacting or even like doing escape rooms online. So that's like, since those topics that's a clear connection, right? So that person who's the content creator who's built kind of an audience of people who want to watch them talk about escape rooms, tactics, skills, their favorites, do's and don'ts. Their audience is they've already said, yes, I want to know more about escape rooms. And so it would be super natural for that creator to say, hey, we all love escape rooms. That's why you follow me. So I'm going to tell you about another place that you can go to have like a super immersive, interactive experience. And that is, then go from there. So I would say yes, if you have a really clear understanding of like what you want to get out of it, if your audiences are aligned with theirs, and if you've kind of done that foundational work, I think that could be a great way to draw new users.
I could take the one about the website. Would you suggest a website to drive people to your worlds and socials? And we'll talk about that in the next session. That could be considered social media marketing. There's two things that we do in PR that I think is relevant. And that is look at social media channels to reach your audience and traditional media, which is dying. So go back to social media. Also, I think most of your audiences are going to be on social much more so than New York Times, CNN, CNET. Furthermore, very hard. I mean, a lot harder than it used to be in my 30 years of doing this to get into those level of publications anyway. You need to be funded, growing, and hot, in AI, basically. So I would not think of press, and we said we weren't really going to address press, but think about your social media channels as a website to drive eyeballs, growth, attention, users. And it's pretty basic and might be obvious. And let me know if that answered, if you have something more specific in that realm.
Okay, one more question in this, Candace, I'll throw this to you, but I'm happy to answer as well. This question's from Blender93, and they asked, how do you tell if this is working, or how do you tell what is working? If you're doing a bunch of things, how do you?
I think I can growth. Are you getting users? Are you retaining users? Those are the two things that most of you at this stage are looking for. Retention is really important. Are you watching your metrics? Are you sort of what we talked about is over a certain amount of time, are you hitting your growth goals? It might be hard to even know how to set those goals, but the more you get into this and the more you refine what you're doing and pay attention to it, you can see if growth is happening and pay attention to that. And that can be on social as well. But you do want to retain and you want to grow. That means it's working. And also, is your message, we call it pulling through. Are people mimicking it? Is it landing? Or do you have evidence that it's clear, that it's actually resonating? Or is it confusing? There might be a way to query your users or look for evidence that it's confusing and then try again. or, be curious. That's the main thing. Be curious with your super fans. If there's a way that you can engage them and ask them, is this making sense? Am I really who I think I am? It's sort of an existential question, but those are some things to think about.
I think we wanted to keep it to like 5-ish questions. So I'm going to go with one more, which I think is a really good question and something that's kind of perfect because we're going to talk a lot about this in the next session. Other than kind of, the self-promotion, or we also call self-promotion owned channels, right? So that's your social, that's you kind of posting about you, right? So other than self-promotion or owned channel promotion, what are the top 3 external groups you feel would be most impactful in getting the word out to others? So, and then they listed some examples of fans posting and talking about your world on social media, partnering with YouTubers that live cast or play, live, or other groups. Like, so what do we think? And like I said, I'll answer this because it's kind of lead us right into the next session. So I would say you're hitting on a lot of the right themes here in terms of in the examples that you gave about kind of the external groups. So I think in the next session, we'll talk about how to engage with your followers on social and how to get them to post on your behalf. So we'll talk about tactics and kind of tips for that. YouTube or Twitch or streamers, that's another great place to go. The thing with YouTube is that, that content can often be quite long. So the issue there is that you really, again, like we talked about, attention spans are a little bit short these days, right? So if you're working with someone and they're going to do like a 30-minute video, how many people are going to get through that 30-minute video, right? That's fairly long. You might
90 seconds, cap it.
Right. So I would, as you start off, I would think about shorter content. I love YouTube for really in-depth stuff, but you might want to think about kind of shorter content first and then going into kind of longer form stuff on like a YouTube or a Twitch style streaming service. Again, in the next session, we'll talk about Reddit, we'll talk about Discord, we'll talk about how to kind of, some things that we've seen creators do inside of Horizon Worlds. We'll talk about social and how to engage with your audience there. And we'll also talk about kind of giving you guys some tools, how to plan for a new world launch. So if you have a launch that's like a couple months out, a couple weeks out, we'll kind of give you the play-by-play, a schedule of like what we would recommend, the things that you can do building up to that launch to market and make sure that you're really successful. So I think that was all kind of the questions that we wanted to answer today, but we'll look through the rest of them. If there's anything else we can answer, we'll definitely get in touch with William and team and make sure you guys get answers to those. But I think that's it for today.
10 out of 10 job, my friends. This is wonderful. And we are so excited for part 2 of this event next month. Please give Candace and Shannon a round of applause in chat. And we look forward to seeing you all again in the near future.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Yeah, come back. Come to the next session, please.
Session 2.
Bye all.